Members were formed a quorum and it's also the appointed time. Welcome to the meeting of the Subcommittee on matters relating to the development of Smart City. The first thing on the agenda is meeting with deputations. Now, as we all know, this is a public hearing, and 9 deputations or individuals have registered to come, and some members of the public have already submitted written submissions and they're not going to attend. 5 submissions have been forwarded to members for your information. Please invite the public to join us now. I will give the floor to the deputations to speak. They can each speak for up to 3 minutes, and then I invite the administration to provide a consolidated response. Our time is rather tight today. I will give each member 1 minute for questions and for questions. Yes, please invite officials to come in too. Present today from the administration, we have Ms. Germaine Wong, Innovation, Technology and Industry Bureau Deputy Secretary, as well as Mr. Kingsley Wong, Assistant Government Chief Information Officer. Let us welcome the administration and members of the public. May I remind you that if you need simultaneous interpretation service, tune into channel 0 for the floor, channel 1 for Cantonese, 2 for English, and 3 for Putonghua. Please be succinct in your speeches. You can speak for up to 3 minutes. We have a timer. Please be reminded that your remarks and written submissions will not be protected by the Electrical Powers and Privileges Ordinance. And please, now we don't see anyone in the public gallery today, so I can skip the reminder. Now, if you have prepared a speaking note, please put your name on it, and then you can pass on your speaking notes to our secretariat afterwards. 3 minutes is a bit short, and if you cannot cover all your points, you're welcome to give us a written submission afterwards. I will give the floor to deputations first before the administration respond afterwards. Mr. Lee Kei-chun from the Hong Kong Computer Society. Oh, he's yet to arrive. Mr. Lee Chen Yu from Smart City Consortium. Thank you. I hope that the government can support open data and set up an open data roadmap, and I hope that a new office can be set up within the government, and please set up the position of Chief Data Officer. We've already provided an advisory report to OGO, and we hope the administration can continue to support the application of artificial intelligence, AI, and data analysis is also needed. Another point is to continue to cultivate an AI learning environment. And the third part is we hope that all departments and bureaus can continue to work with the Development Bureau. Now they have already spatial data apps. Departments may not be aware of the existence of such data sets, and hopefully local and tech companies can continue to apply for patents. Please allow them to make more than one applications. This will echo the proposals in the country's 14th five-year plan in the elevation of I&P industry. And Hong Kong is also a knowledge-based city. Finally, we hope the administration can take the current opportunity. We have a very busy art festival month, and we urge the administration to consider developing an art ID standard. I've completed my 5 points. Thank you. All right, we have got a submission from Smart City Consortium for members' information. Please note. Next, Mr. Chin Kwok Keung from the Hong Kong Software Industry Association. Good afternoon, Chair. I'm from Hong Kong Software Industry Association. We're pleased to see that the administration has made progress in building a smart city in Hong Kong. In developing Hong Kong into a smart city, it is important that we can allow members of the public to get the convenience and benefits of a smart city. So we need to identify functions and applications that can be used by the public the soonest possible. Now, for facilitating measures under the development of a smart city, now there are two major challenges. First is interdepartmental efforts, and second, many services can only be available through public-private sector's participation, and we need strategic measures to overcome those hurdles. For instance, cross-departmental services. How can we ensure that for members of the public to have unified user experience, such as identity verification and input of address, etc.? There should be a common microservice design to allow all departments to provide a more uniformed digital user experience and to make it easier for the public to use digital technology. Now, for the application of smart transport, for instance, there are franchised operators and individual public transport service providers and various sectors. They should be allowed to take part in the infrastructure of a smart city. Take taxi drivers as an example. How do they make use of digital services? They may need some incentives and subsidies and even training. We need a comprehensive plan. I suggest that the government identify the more significant facilitation measures for the public and implement them first. Now, for the use of e-government, there should be regular training in the community for the public so that people can have access to e-government services and they learn how to use it. Thank you. Mr. Lam Hon Wai. Thank you, Chair. I'm from the Internet Professional Association. As said by Mr. Chin, making it easy for members of the public is of paramount importance. And to do that, there should be financial incentives and second, statutory requirements, such as the use of Liform Safe because it was required by law. Members of the public had to use it. And other example is the electronic consumption voucher. By providing financial incentives, members of the public are willing to use technology. So we should consider these 2 points. Take I Am Smart as an example. I Am Smart can be used in the application of various government documents. For instance, that can be physical application and online application. If government applications can be made totally paperless, at least gradually, then members of the public will have no choice but to use I Am Smart or use other digital means to have access to government services. This will be very useful in helping to build a smart city. Thank you. Mr. Lo Chun Fai, Executive Committee member from Youth Liberal Party. Thank you. The idea of smart city is to use technology to satisfy people's basic needs. Now, when it comes to daily living, it's about mobility, food, accommodation, and clothing. The government should promote a smart lamppost, smart car parks, and use various technology to relieve traffic congestion. And there should be development of new energy vehicles. In order to enhance the efficiency of public transport, we can promote overall development of society. In the long run, we can address the shortage of professional drivers in Hong Kong. Now, we are an INT center under the government's, under the country's planning. We should use innovation in various aspects of life. For instance, we should review I Am Smart and Platform 1823 so as to make it easy for members of the public to use e-services. The government can also use technology to narrow down the gap with the public, and such e-platforms can be used for collating the views of the public. We should enhance our own infrastructure to enhance connectivity with other cities in the GBA to create synergy. Internally, we should update and review legislation that are hurdles to innovation and technology. Government departments should be innovative enough, and there should be mutual connectivity between government departments. Now, there are various declaration forms and application forms of the government. They are in different formats. Now, when you join 6 committees, you may have to sign or fill out 8 different forms, and we have to fill out our telephones and also even the code of our Chinese name as well. How many of us can remember such codes? Now, if all government departments share the same data, why should I be required to fill out different forms? Is that convenient? And many government departments ask me what is my fax number so that I can be given a reply. Well, email may become obsolete 10 years down the road, and you still ask for a fax number. I think these are obstacles to developing a smart city. We must be people-centric. The government should explain to the public to allay their concerns and allow stakeholders enough time to digest new arrangements. While we promote INT, we should also update the relevant information, and please consider how you can answer to objections. Building a smart city may lead to loss of jobs. The government should provide continuing education for low-end jobs so that they will not be affected in their employment. Thank you. Mr. Hu Datman from the Hong Kong Blind Union. Thank you. We've got 3 suggestions. Now, we believe the development of a data center is very important. I'm from Smart City College. It seems to us that in Hong Kong, we do not have any environmental requirements for data center. In other places, they are very advanced. There are national standards, and they have energy efficiency requirement of lower than 1.3. Now is 1.25. The lower, the better. However, we do not have such requirements for data centers in Hong Kong. It can be up to 1.7, 1.6. And that is very detrimental to the environment. And I think this will hinder other data centers to be established in Hong Kong if they care for the environment. I hope the government can take the lead. We just refer to the national standard. I know we cannot achieve it overnight, but the national standard can serve as a guideline for stakeholders to get used to it. That is a good start. In terms of environmental protection, we place more emphasis on ESG nowadays. But when it comes to S and G, we are very often following overseas standards that do not suit our local circumstances. Hong Kong being a place where the East meet West, I think we are in a good position to lead in ESG standards that suit not just Hong Kong but the whole of China or even Asia. Because the culture, we are very different from other Asian countries in culture. It's important that we have our own ESG standards. I hope the administration can help to set up such standards. Lastly, we talked about GPT nowadays and AI. Baidu, Wenxin, Yi, number one in the mainland. If you try it out, you will be barred because we do not have a mainland phone number. So can we discuss with leading technology companies in the mainland, because Hong Kong is really part of the country. When new technology is launched, they should consider Hong Kong as part of the country. This can help Hong Kong to understand the latest technology development in the mainland. Thank you.
Next, we have Ms. Kitty Tam, Assistant Manager of Conservation Policy from Worldwide Fund for Nature, Hong Kong. IPCC released the latest report, and it shows that what we take as measures are not enough to cope with the climate change, and hopefully we can advance the measures for 10 years, and we hope to halve the carbon emission by 2030. And also there was the pledge that by 2030 we can halt and reverse biodiversity loss. In order to develop Hong Kong as a smarter and greener city, apart from fulfilling our international responsibility, we also want to make it more livable. WWF has the following recommendations. When the government develops a smart city, we should be people-centric, and these goals that government set should be consistent with that of the international community. For instance, by 2030, we should halve carbon emissions and become more nature positive. Secondly, we should develop a greener city. Green infrastructure and nature-based solutions should be mainstreamed by the government. The government should base on SSP 5-8.5 to conduct environmental impact assessment, and also assess and also enhance transparency, and also prevent the sea level rise. And also there should be a smart labeling system for prepackaged seafood. And the government should use the blockchain technology to enhance supply chain traceability. The Agriculture, Fisheries and Conservation Department should consider implementing the electronic CITES permit system. Fourth, the government should make use of the technology of smart meters and smart grids to enhance energy efficiency and lower the reliance on fossil fuels so that we can achieve the target of halving carbon emissions by 2030. Also, the government should select indicator species and monitor the relevant data. And this can enhance transparency and also provide important data for reference for different government departments. Also, the government should consider the carrying capacity in the upcoming Northern Metropolis development. This could include further investment in the ongoing smart wetland project at Mai Po Nature Reserve, supported by the Countryside Conservation Funding Scheme. The government can make use of the Internet of Things and to measure visitor impact on ecosystems. Thank you. Next, we have Ms. Peggy Ko, Executive Director of the Hong Kong Blind Union. Our organization is formed by people with visual impairment, and all along we care about the living quality and social support for the visually impaired. Speaking of smart city, we think that indoor positioning and wayfinding technologies are essential for the visually impaired because it can provide safety and convenience to these people. Currently, the visually impaired can, through the use of mobile phone, obtain abundant information, and through mobile phones, they can find the locations or way to the destinations they want to go to. For instance, they can identify locations and directions even in complicated indoor settings in shopping malls or hospitals, and through the directions given by the mobile phones, they can reach the destinations. When there is fire, the visually impaired can also obtain information about escape route to protect their lives. In order to take forward these technologies, there are various hurdles. For instance, in 2017, we got the funding from Hong Kong Jockey Club to develop a mobile app called Smart City Walk, but we were met with various challenges. There are 3 fronts or aspects to it. We lack the funding to do long-run research and development, and also not a lot of premises are enthusiastic to take part in this kind of schemes. Also, there is a lack of knowledge about accessible digital technology of the public. We have the following recommendations. We think that the government should set up a subsidy scheme to provide funding for research and development. Second, the government can consider enacting legislations and take reference to the design manual issued by the Buildings Department to ensure that there are enough barrier-free facilities and supporting measures in various buildings in Hong Kong, and this should include indoor positioning and wayfinding systems. Thirdly, the government should do more education and publicity work and understand the needs of various people with disabilities so that when they develop the relevant technologies, they can meet their needs. To summarize, we think that the government should really consider developing indoor positioning and wayfinding technology and see how they can take forward these technologies in both indoor and outdoor settings so that the people with visual impairment can make good use of the technology. Last but not least, the government should consider the needs of people with disabilities and invite them to take part in the design. Next, we have Ms. Eva Chen from the Hong Kong Public Key Infrastructure Forum Limited. Good afternoon. Our organization was set up in 2002. We strive to enhance the connectivity of various financial systems or trade systems that covers the various cross-border applications to allow the issuance of authentication and to ensure that the information obtained on the internet can be verified. With digital development, we think that the key is to make clear the authenticity of the identities of different parties of transactions, and we need international organization or international standard. And this is what I'm going to focus on today, that is legal entity identity. Back in 2008, when there was the financial crisis, G20 in Europe, in order to cope with the financial crisis, they came up with this LEI, and this was accepted by a lot of countries around the world as a financial standard. So a lot of financial systems, for instance, in Hong Kong, a lot of companies under the financial regulators have to have this LEI serial number. And this was first applied in financial systems, but now its use is extended to other areas. In September 2002, there are over 100,000 LEI serial numbers, and China is one of the fastest developing countries in this respect. We hope to work with financial and non-financial departments in Hong Kong and mainland to develop LEI technologies. Moving forward, we hope to explore with the government to see how we can make use of LEI and electronic certificates to verify identities in financial and other sectors. LEI is a cornerstone of the development of digital technology. We welcome the government and various sectors or departments around the world to develop this technology to tie in with the development goals of the Greater Bay Area so that we can achieve a synergy effect. Thank you. I now invite government officials to make a brief response on the comments from deputations or individuals. Thank you. I thank Madam Chair for inviting us to attend this meeting today so that we can collect the valuable comments from the public regarding the development of smart city. We carefully jotted down your comments just now. Last week, we also received some written submissions from organizations, and we are happy to be able to hear your views on the development of smart city. That is how we can take forward the relevant initiatives or measures. Before we attended this meeting today, we read the written submissions. We understand that there are different views from the public on the development of smart city. They are very helpful, and they gave us a lot of insights on how we can enhance our development of smart city. We represent the SAR government, so some of the views may not be related to our bureau, but we will pass them on to other government bureaus to see how we can improve our measures as we strive to develop Hong Kong as a smart city. That's all for my response for now. Members who would like to speak, please press the request to speak button. There is a time limit, so 3 minutes for each member. There are 3 members who would like to speak: Ms. Carmen Khan, Mr. Dominic Lee, and Mr. Chen Xiu-hong. We'll start with Ms. Carmen Khan. I'd like to thank all the deputations for attending this meeting today, for offering your views, and we have heard your views. I have a couple of questions too for the guests attending the meeting today. Representatives from the Smart City Consortium mentioned about setting up a digital bureau. Based on your observations, why should we create this role under a new bureau but not under ITIB? I'd like to hear your views about the advantages of setting up this bureau or post. I have other question for Ms. Chen from HKPKIF. You mentioned that there are over 100,000 LEI from our country. How did they manage to do that? Did they encourage the setting up of LEIs through enactment of legislations or other means? Mr. Chun from the Smart City Consortium, please. Thank you, Ms. Khan. In response to the question about the Digital Bureau, why should we separate it from other bureaus? It's because there are data from different government bureaus and departments, and traditionally you would save these data in files, and gradually they are digitalized. There is a timetable for digitization if possible, and if there is enough coordination effort, there should be a dedicated bureau or department to be the coordinator. From the development of Smart City Blueprint of 1.0 to 3.0, all along we have advocated the establishment of this bureau.
I hope that answered Ms. Khan's question. Thank you. Now, in late October, I sponsor a motion debate to develop e-governments and promote digital economy in Hong Kong, and the whole council supported it, including the chair. Now the country has got a similar setup, and you're of the view that it won't be so effective. It is put under the IT and I Bureau. It should be a standalone establishment to be headed by a chief data officer. And for instance, deputation said that it would be better if we can have something like the national standard. Is that what you're asking for? Yes. We have got the Census and Statistics Department. It can be transformed into a digital bureau because different departments possess different data sets. However, they are somehow trapped, and we should have an independent department to coordinate open data that will be more effective. All right, Ms. Chen from the Hong Kong PKIF. Well, in 2020, the country published a national LEI roadmap, and Mr. Ip Kok Him was invited to make a motion to the 14th plenary of the 13th NPC, resolution number 677. We got the support of the country, and we were asked to start a trial scheme to see how LEI could be adopted in Hong Kong. With the recommendation in mind, starting from 2021, we did a lot of research and activities to promote LEI. For instance, in the coming October, an LEI code will accept payment message for the ICL. That is, for cross-border payment, one can use the LEI code for payment. If the code is valid, the financial transaction can proceed. So in Hong Kong, we are going to put in place an LEI code. That means its development is due to recognition or approval rather than by means of legislation. Now, I am not too familiar with such things. Anyway, the People's Bank of China, in response to our promotion to NPC, said that this has already been a national financial standard. We have a recognition in black and white. So it's the country's policy to accept LEI as an approved identity or an identifier in transactions. Yes. Can the administration respond to this point if there is time? Whether Hong Kong is in a position to follow that? Are you talking about the ICL of Hong Kong? Now, well, time is short today. I haven't provided details. As early back as in 2008, LEI. Now, for the banking, insurance, and securities and financial sector, all companies must have an LEI code, and they need an LEI cert from the government for tax returns. This is an anti-money laundering and anti-terrorism requirements. It is a national standard arising from that. So perhaps it's not within the ambit of ITIB, rather the Financial Services Bureau. Administration, do you aware of Do you understand what LEI is about? Chair, I'm not actually. Now, we're responsible for coordinating all smart city initiatives, so all your proposals will be forwarded to the relevant bureaus. Well, it was a motion made by Ms. Khan, and I mentioned the importance of LEI to Hong Kong. I hope that point has been noted by the administration. All right, Mr. Dominic Lee, I welcome the deputations for coming to the meeting today to give us valuable comments on development of a smart city. Now, I'd like to address my question to Ms. Ko from Hong Kong Blind Union. Earlier on, I had a meeting with the Transport Department on some road crossings, and we went on site visits as well. Many people with visual impairment has reflected to us there are more electronic vehicles on the road, and one feature of e-vehicles is they are rather silent, and some people with visual impairment just do not have the notion that a car is coming, and that can be a road safety hazard. I'd like to know whether you have any smart city solution to help the visually impaired, and what can government departments do to help? Ms. Ko. I'm grateful to Mr. Lee for this question. Yes, the visually impaired are quite worried about this. We have reflected to the Transport Department a number of times that they are using the EU standards. We have tried it out with e-vehicle on loan from a friend. We tried it out in a rather quiet, small street. Now, if the speed is less than 10 kilometers, then it may go unnoticed by the visually impaired. Well, this is not just risky or dangerous to the visually impaired. The elderly or people who are using their mobile phones may not notice that an e-vehicle is approaching. The TD has explained to us that they have followed EU standards. We in response, we said that Hong Kong is very different from EU, and how can the EU standard be applicable in Hong Kong? Hopefully, someone from the council can help us to pursue this matter with the Transport Department. Now for positioning, indoors or outdoors cannot help. Well, not for e-vehicles, because people with visual impairment tend to rely on their hearing, and if you rely on a mobile phone or some app to remind you of that, it may be a bit slow. The thing to do is to do something to the e-vehicle to let people know that an e-vehicle is approaching. Thank you, Mr. Chen Xiu-hong. I want to thank the 8 representatives from deputations for making very good suggestions to us. Yes, we can always get wisdom from the community. We've heard many suggestions and views, and I got this important message. It's not about what the government wants to do to build a smart city. Rather, we should be people-centric. We should ask the public what they want the government to do to build a smart city to satisfy their needs. So what from short speeches we heard just now, we have heard things covering smart mobility, smart economy, etc. These are exactly our concerns. What the government should do so that smart city initiatives can be felt by members of the public, and how they can benefit from these initiatives. Mr. Andrew Lam and the chair and myself are promoting the setting up of a big data bureau. This is about enhancing our use of data. Our greatest concern is data is not fragmented and stored by different departments. There are privacy concerns and whether the use of data is in line with the purpose for which the data was collected. We should remove the restrictions. I want the administration to think about the following. In the promotion of the I&T development blueprint and the establishment of Smart City 3.0, and if at the same time we know that our legislative framework falls far behind technology development, if there are things in our legal system that hinders the development of Smart City 3.0, 4.0, 5.0, that is something for you to think about. If there are obstacles, please don't stop at that. You tell us what are the obstacles you want to remove and we can help. I'd like to ask the deputations the following question. What are the biggest obstacle in our legal system that is in the way of building a smart city? Do let us know. Can we have a response from the administration first? Well, I'm here mainly to listen to views and opinions. All right, anyone from the deputations? For instance, Mr. Low gave us some very good suggestions. He talked about legislative amendments. Can you share your views with us, please, Mr. Low? Thank you, Mr. Chen, and thank you, Chair. I'm not from the legal sector, so I am not familiar with our laws. But then, our legislation aside, there are internal protocols for government departments to follow. For instance, this is a subcommittee to study the development of smart city. We have a physical sitting plan. In fact, you could have give us a sitting plan on the monitor. We have the technology available. Why doesn't the government use it? Perhaps they're just following previous practice, so they follow established protocol and practices. So this is not just about the law. We should consider changing such practices as well. Mr. Chen, now if you are talking about any particular piece of legislation, deputations may not be able to do so because they are laymen here. Very often, we will only run into obstacles when we are actually implementing new technology developments. If you ask them whether they have encountered examples where they thought that it could be done that way, but they were impeded by some piece of legislation. Well, I can give you some examples. Take e-commercial vehicles, and they're running on highways. This is rather ridiculous. It was already approved that e-vehicles could use highways, but for e-commercial vehicles, the old legislation prevails. So these vehicles have to apply for approvals, and processing time can take up to 2 months. And that has attracted a lot of complaints from the public. I hope the administration can hear such examples. Any examples, any case examples from the deputations? Now, I have heard of unmanned shops or eateries in the mainland. In Hong Kong, to run a eatery, you are governed by a number of legislative requirements, And one of the requirements is there must be someone to man the eatery. We can't, for instance, have a robot to sell ice cream. And who should take the initiative to amend the relevant legislation? We may ask the TIB, and then TIB will say that, well, that is not under our portfolio. You can ask the department responsible for business or catering establishments or the FSD. So no one is willing to coordinate, and as a result, nothing can happen. That's the situation we are in.
我見到簡慧敏議員。
I see that Ms. Carmen Khan has a question. Thank you, Madam Chair. You led us into this discussion about our legal framework. I think it covers a lot of different areas. I think that this digital committee was set up under the leadership of Financial Secretary. I suggest that the ITIB, when it reports back to the Financial Secretary, perhaps we can have a fifth committee looking into the legal framework. On digital development, I think we need to think about, for instance, Web3. But we don't have the relevant legal framework for this. Perhaps under the committee chaired by the Financial Secretary, we can set up a new committee that looks specifically into the legal issues and perhaps invite Secretary for Justice to join this committee to have a discussion. Or the alternative way to handle it is to ask the other 4 committees to look into the matter to see what new legislations we need to enact. For instance, is it necessary for us to establish a digital bureau in order for us to share data? This is just a small suggestion from me. Perhaps I can say a few words as well. The government officials here cannot speak on behalf of all government departments or bureaus. However, say for instance, we've been talking about the development of barrier-free facilities and accessible digital technology, as suggested by the Hong Kong Blind Union. We should develop the indoor positioning and wayfinding technologies. I wonder if over the past decade, we only have a website for this kind of technology, but not actual measures to meet the needs of the visually impaired. Thank you, Madam Chair. Over the past decade, we put in a lot of efforts into developing the website about accessible digital technology. Over the past few years, we rolled out some subsidy schemes to NGOs to develop some apps to offer help to people with disabilities. Through our support, NGOs were able to develop mobile apps to help the visually impaired to identify different objects in their daily lives. We also offer different subsidies to organizations. If NGOs are interested, they can, for instance, apply for a fund for better living. Of course, we will do more publicity work on this front to allow members of the industry to have a better understanding of what kind of difficulties the visually impaired face in their daily lives, so that we can develop more mobile apps to help people with disabilities. So we've been making such effort all along. However, specifically on indoor positioning and wayfinding, perhaps you have done relatively little research and development. Is that right? Perhaps you would want to communicate more often with the Hong Kong Blind Union to see what kind of efforts you can make in this respect. We often talk about financial incentives and legal requirements to encourage people to develop the technologies. On indoor positioning and wayfinding technologies in particular, I think government premises should take the lead to implement such technology. But currently, we don't see such technology in government premises. For shopping malls, with a lack of financial incentives or legal requirements, it's hard for you to encourage people to take part in these initiatives. I see Mr. Chin raised your hand. I wanted to respond to the demand from Hong Kong Blind Union, and I would also like to talk about legal requirements and also data sharing. On the demand from the Hong Kong Blind Union is actually simple. You can imagine if we want to walk from the Legislative Council to the Pacific Place, if we want to roll out technology, well, we have to first pass through a bridge. To get to the Pacific Place. Without an incentive, it's hard for us to guide the visually impaired to the destination. We need financial investment. We also need technological design to ensure such experience. A lot of times, there are problems on our part, be it the sector or the government. A lot of times they try to roll out new technology. They make investments to develop indoor positioning and wayfinding technologies. However, you need to work with the public sectors in order to do that. And this is why we think the Digital Bureau would be necessary. We're not in the position to say whether this Digital Bureau should fall under a particular department of the government, but we're talking about what standards the government should use and what kind of data that we should share, whether there are APIs that goes with such technology, and we need a central department for such policy making. For instance, the data from traffic lights or different transport facilities may be different. I wonder if the transport department and the lands department can share such data with each other. This is about data sharing. Like representatives from the Hong Kong Blind Union said, say if there are good data from the lands department, perhaps they can already roll out positioning and wayfinding technologies. But how can we use this data? We need a policy bureau. A lot of times it's hard to solve such issues with one single government bureau or department. Then the problem comes to legal issues. Will there be privacy issues? What kind of jurisdiction of different government or departments are involved? As a citizen, it's hard for us to resolve such issues. We need a dedicated unit to solve these problems. Ms. Ko from the Hong Kong Blind Union. We're facing various different kinds of problems. In 2017, we got the funding from Hong Kong Jockey Club, but in order to develop such technology, we need long-term funding. Also, for premises who wants to take part in this initiative, they have to pay certain maintenance cost. Will the government be able to roll out some sort of funds or subsidies for participating organizations to apply for? We've been talking about accessible digital technology for many years, but there is no requirement under the law, so we do not prioritize them. Let me give you an example. The banking union required its members to develop accessible digital technology through their websites, so they asked us to help them certify or authenticate to ensure that their websites reach the international standard. We need regulators in this respect. Perhaps we can draw reference to the practice in the United States. And if we have such standard, it will be easier for us to promote such accessible digital technology. Otherwise, it will depend on the enterprise's own willingness to roll out this technology. Indeed, technology can offer a lot of help to the visually impaired. As I mentioned, we have mobile apps that can offer help to the visually impaired. Well, smart city is about planning of the entire city. If we look at the mainland or Macau, they have buses with wayfinding or positioning technologies, so that when the bus comes, they know immediately whether it is the bus that they are waiting for, and they can also locate where the bus entrances are. However, we don't have such technology in Hong Kong. On the smart city blueprint in Hong Kong, compared to that of Macau or the mainland, we are indeed falling behind. I hope that the government can put in more resources in making use of technology, in developing public transport and so on, so that the visually impaired can benefit from such technology. Well, I myself has been promoting the use of accessible digital technology for many years, and it's saddening to see that we're still falling behind other cities or countries. Yes, Mr. Chen Xiu-hong, I share your views, Madam Chair. Well, it's clear that the government has to implement barrier-free access or facilities for the visually impaired, and the examples given were great. We are lacking of a dedicated bureau or department to coordinate the efforts of various departments and bureaus, and we also lack a government bureau to enact legislation. On smart mobility, does it fall under the purview of TLB's Universal Accessibility Program or ITIB? If it falls under the ITIB, it seems to be out of the remit of the Bureau. This is about the livelihood issue. I think that there should be a dedicated Bureau to take forward such initiative. The other government bureaus have a lot of projects in hand. So when it comes to developing Hong Kong as a smart city, how can we do better? The issues proposed by the Hong Kong Blind Union was just a tip of an iceberg. Should it be an interdepartmental effort on the government's part? The public is looking for a better living quality. We are still waiting for the Smart City Blueprint 3.0 to be implemented. We hope that the government can try its best and implement as many initiatives as possible.
I'm sure the administration has heard your views. Ms. Carmen Khan, can the Bureau tell us What are the 4 task forces under the development of digital economy? Now, we heard the FS talk about it, but we would like to know what the 4 working groups are. And what is your preliminary response to our proposal to consider the policies? Now, the working group are on cross-border data flow, second, digital infrastructure, the third, on digital transformation, and the fourth is manpower training. Have you considered whether our legislation has to be updated? Now, the working groups are formed by representatives from the trade. So when it comes to the relevant legislation, I think individual departments know best. So there is the mention of e-vehicles. I think the relevant bureau and department responsible for promoting e-vehicles will know best legislative obstacles they have. So it will be for the respective bureau or department to know best what are the legislative obstacles. I think that is all they can say today. Now we come to the question of data department or bureau. Now we all want the government to set up a big data bureau or department and to have a chief data officer. This is not the first time we have mentioned this. We have talked about this for a long time. And then it was already raised in the first advisory report from Smart City Consortium. Now, while we have the basic infrastructure, CSDI, there are hindrances. The data may already be in the open domain, but some departments are still reluctant to include such data in CSDI, but we need consolidated data to help policy decisions to communicate with the public and different sectors, and the public can make use of such data for whatever purpose they want, because such data can be very useful. However, we have faced this problem all along, and there is no government department to coordinate the way data is to be collected, the type to be collected, the standards to adopt, and also requirements on data to be collected. So I think it is important that we have this basic infrastructure, the Big Data Bureau. However, no one in the government thinks that it is his business, so we have to continue to press the CE or the CS views from the community and also from legislators. I hope they can be heard and heeded by the government. Any other views? Members, any other questions? Now, our next meeting was originally scheduled for the 25th of April. But we'll have to see if the duty visit to GBA will take place in the week of the 25th of April. We've yet to hear from the administration, but be prepared that the April meeting will be rescheduled. If need be, we will reschedule it to another date, maybe in early May. And we're going to visit the GIS lab or geospatial lab. Oh, all right. The date is not fixed yet. Well, again, it may clash with our duty visit. It may be rescheduled. The reason why we want to visit the laboratory is because we keep talking about CSDI, but many legislators do not know what the platform is about. Well, the laboratory has got good demonstrations or illustrations to tell us how important data is and how different departments and sectors can use data to improve livelihood. So do make available time to join the visit. And we've also got a visit to Smart Hospital. We're discussing with the administration whether we should visit Tin Shui Wei Hospital or Cheung Kwan O Hospital. Date of our next meeting. All right, the next meeting will be the last for this subcommittee. At the last meeting, we wanted to invite the secretary to discuss with us the content and the roadmap of Smart City 3.0. So our secretariat will liaise with the secretary. Hopefully he can attend our next meeting. And we've also prepared a report to be submitted to the House Committee. This Friday, we're going to discuss at the HC meeting that we will extend the work of the subcommittee. We may not be successful, but we will join the waiting list, and hopefully you can all speak to support our proposal. Any AOB? If not, then the meeting is adjourned. I thank all the deputations and individuals and officials for attending the meeting. Thank you.